Iron Duke by Hubbard. Two men strode hurriedly through the black of the Eldorian night, shadows against the darker shadow of brush along the edge of the field. Beyond them, against the stars, loomed the foothills of the Balkan spur known as Valgus Range. Far off, a train whistled 3 ghostly notes. Oh, froze, said the shorter man. Why didn't you tell me that it was this cold in the Balkans?
Quit chattering. If a patrol hears those two, they're gonna think we've got a machine gun.
Don't mention machine guns. They make me think of firing squads. Gosh, Blackie, aren't we ever going to get across the frontier?
Take it easy, sweetheart. If I stop that there, we'd cross the frontier. We're in Eldorian.
Blackie, what do we do about passports?
We'll think about that if we meet up with the patrol.
Yeah, but we can't use our own. The Nazi government, they'd have us extradited. And it's too cold to get shot.
Take it easy, sweetheart.
Hear that? The shorter would pause and listen to the nearing hoot of a train, and then put his speed up to catch his companion, who was increasing his pace. About a mile away, the headlight of the locomotive was glowing.
Oh, we can't get on that. We haven't any Eldorian dough. And they'll ask us for our passports and the Nazi government.
Have I ever let you down? Said the taller one, crisply.
No. Yeah, you said they wouldn't find out that them artillery shells was loaded with sand and that the machine guns had solid barrels until after we collected the cash. And now look at us, brought in some post-tribe Balkan state. Why didn't you let us try for the post if it's warm?
Somewhere around here, there will be a grave marked Stubbed Doyle unless I hear large quantities of quiet.
Okay, Blackie, but only put that nice check and taco back in.
Blackie Lee stepped off the track and hauled Stubbed Doyle with him. The locomotive snorted and squealed and rattled to a halt beyond the station, leaving the last car abreast of the two. Blackie Lee fumbled with the door and finally got it open. He gave Stubb a boost and then swiftly followed himself. Blackie closed the door and motioned along the aisle. The train was already starting when they found an empty compartment, and shortly after, when the trainmaster glanced in on his way by, his attention was in no way attracted by the passengers therein, curled on the seats. Stubbed Doyle, as soon as the menace was past, paid more and more attention to Blackie Lee. Blackie was sitting up again, looking absently through the window of the flying night. He was a handsome fellow. Blackie Lee had come out of his reverie and was now, by aid of his reflection in the glass, carefully twirling his mustache into a pair of military points. Never in all the years he had been with Blackie had Stubb known him to carry wax or use wax. And now, with their baggage abandoned in Austria, a thing as nonsensical as mustache wax was here in Blackie's possession. Stubb gave over wandering. He sighed and rested his little round face in his pudgy hands.
There was such a nice bottle of anisette in the trunk. Gosh, Blackie, do you ever think I'll see that bottle again?
Probably never.
And that nice suit, the nice new suit with the yellow stripes?
It's probably adorning the porter of the Keynes Hotel. If his tasting clothes that is yours.
Gosh, you really think so, Blackie?
You're lucky not to have that suit full of fools. It was you and that can be told.
Yeah, you're always telling me how lucky I am to be alive. You'll pull me through hell and high dives with one of your ideas. And then, when we escape on the razor's edge of execution, you tell me how lucky I am. I'm not complaining, you understand, but sometimes I think my nerves just won't stand it anymore. Tonight, we should have been dining with generals and getting paid real money. But here we are on a train without any tickets in a country which we didn't enter legally, without so much as an Eldorian dime or a forged birth certificate.
You haven't forgotten how to use a pen.
Yeah, but now I haven't even got a pen. That's lost sometimes, Flacky.
The train came to a screaming halt. Garay threw Stubb into the middle of the floor. He clutched the sill, staring with terrified eyes at Blackie.
Get conduct! Sauce! The Austrians figured we'd shove them across the frontier and snag this rattler. Hell's bells, Blackie, what do we do now?
Sit tight and hope. It's impossible that they could extradite us that fast.
They'd send word that we were in the country without papers. Blackie, I can hear the rats in the dungeons already.
Blackie was giving the troops outside the window an interested examination. A patrol, booted and great-coated, was flashing flashlights along the side of the track, and boarding the train at the next car.
We're in for it now. And me without so much as a drink.
They sat very still, hearing the patrol going through the cars ahead. The search was coming closer. Their compartment door was thrown open by the train master, who consulted his records so as to address the occupants by name. The lieutenant in charge of the patrol was all business as he waited for the train master to speak up.
Well,
Said the lieutenant.
Your Honor,
Said the train master, trembling.
I have no record of the two gentlemen in there.
And the lieutenant was had all the savor of a bloodhound at last treeing his quarry, thrust himself into the room, one hand resting on the butt of his gun. The lieutenant's smile of triumph suddenly congealed upon his face, and then, from the eyes down, there dropped a curtain of humbling terror. This, in turn, was swept away by the stolid, parade-ground expression, and looking straight ahead, his heels close together, the lieutenant stood.
My apologies, Your Highness. We are searching for one Boucher, the leader of the Sons of Freedom, reported to have been on this train. My stupidity, Your Highness, is only that of zeal. May I be granted the favor of remaining aboard and posting an active guard over your compartment?
I do not care to have my attention called to my presence aboard the Trans-Balkan Express. You are excused, Lieutenant. Carry on.
The lieutenant, embarrassed, about face and marched out. Angrily, he motioned his men from the corridor. The train master stood blinking and peering, stupefied.
Is there anything, Your Highness, Louis Sire?
Yes. A bottle of anisette for my friend and a ham sandwich for myself.
Immediate, Your Highness.
And he stumbled away. Stubb looked slack-jawed at Waggly, finding it difficult to force a question out of his constricted throat.
Your Highness? They called you Your Highness.
The train had started again, and he sank back, staring thoughtfully out of the window at the flying night. Stubb was nervous. He lay upon a bed which seemed an acre of silk and stared restlessly around a room in which a company might have drilled. This was the imperial suite of the Crown Hotel at the famous Spa of Draken, some 60 kilometers from the capital. But when he closed his eyes, he imagined an unwavering line of Nazi rifles, muzzles foremost, with cold, uncaring eyes behind each set of sights. As a respectful nod sounded upon the door, Blackie reared up from his bed, put on his big dark goggles, and called.
Come in.
An effeminate, smirking little man minced into the room carrying a small box. Behind him came assistants, each one carrying a larger box. Does Your Highness visit further fitting? We have had your congresses in such a hurry that I'm very afraid you'll not be wholly pleased.
No more fussing. Get out.
Yes, Sir. And the little man directed the boxes to be put down, and then backed himself and his assistants out, closing the door softly behind him. Stubb groaned and relaxed. Blackie took off the dark goggles and began to tear the boxes open. Stubb dumbly fixed his eyes upon the window, through which he could see the dying sun. How could he know but that when he saw it, he would be back to a wall? Presently, a gratified mutter came from Blackie Lee. He was standing before a full-length mirror, surveying himself in a suit of tails, turning a little this way and that.
Look like London, but it will have to do.
For a moment, Stubb felt a pang of envy. He wished he could look as well as that in clothes. And then he was shaken by a new alarm.
You're not going out to dine. But whatever the hell you're up to, you might get caught. Maybe you're using hypnotism on these guys, and maybe you've gotten us this place and put us in the royal suite, got some clothes, but there's a limit, even to your luck.
Get dressed.
I was kidding. I don't talk Magyar lingo like you.
Magyar? Well, talk French. That's it. You're famous French physician.
Me? A sawbones? Right, Trinity batch of a blister.
You're Dr. Cartier, famous French psychiatrist. That's it. Pierre Cartier, specialist in abnormal psychology. Get dressed.
Blackie put on his dark glasses and then a red satin-lined opera cape. He looked at himself again and topped off with a high hat. Satisfied, strolled to the door.
Oh, I'll take you to her in the garden. Come down when you are ready.
Blackie, swinging his stick, strolled down the hall of the wine staircase. Blackie had wandered down the walk and was now disappearing on the shrubbery-lined paths of the garden. It was a very pleasant evening, mellow with the promise of warmer weather. Blackie swung his stick and did not notice the stir he created. He saw ahead of him a woman in a white satin gown and early evening clothes. She seemed to be waiting for him on the edge of a dark byway, and Blackie, wondering hopefully, quickened his pace. As he drew nearer, he saw a diamond tiara sparkling in the soft sheen of her dark hair, and a simple but expensive bracelet upon her free white wrist. It was difficult to make out her face in these shadows, but he could suddenly feel the intensity of her.
Philip,
He inclined his head, hopping to a step 2 paces from her. Lord, how beautiful she was!
Philip, you fool. I've ridden 20 kilometers to get you out of this place. What devil possessed you to show your face here? Are you out of your wits? If I, 20 kilometers at my castle, heard you had come to Draken, then Bouchard, who has a dozen spies for every one of mine, is either here or will be here. Soak up as much whiskey as you please. Lull in bed for the rest of your life. But have the decency and sense to know that your stupidity and carelessness may put all our lives at stake.
To hear is to obey.
She had started to speak again, and she stopped and took a step closer to him, peering intently at his face. Her perfume went swirling around him like a gentle drug.
I must say, there's something very odd about all this. You seem a little taller, straighter in your voice.
Perhaps, my lady, you have never before seen me sober.
Ah, and you are sober for once in your wasteful, utterly useless life.
And she was still looking at him oddly. Her tone changed a little, became softer and more gentle.
It weren't bad when you were a child, Philip. If you could cure yourself of all your rottenness, I might even marry you yet.
I could never hope so high.
Gallantry from you. This is too much. You who've always hated me and everything I stood for.
A famous French physician, Dr. Pierre Cartier, has created me a changed man, my lady. I see the error of my ways, and certainly a man that was even a third of a man could not help but fall deeply in love with a woman as beautiful as you.
You mock. And we stand here chattering while any number of Belchard's devils may be on their way. I could not wait for my God. My carriage is up on the road. Come with me instantly.
But how regrettable. I cannot accept. I have a dinner engagement.
You fool! You simpering fool! You may have gotten the whiskey husk out of your voice and the hump out of your shoulders, but your brains aren't changed. You stubborn, selfish whelp. Can't you understand even danger? And this is true danger. I never knew of you being brave before, Philip.
Not brave. It's only I cannot be rude. A dinner engagement.
What's some of your theater weapon? I cannot force you into sense. My God will be here in the hour, And you'll go, even if I have to drag you. You can't put us all in jeopardy to satisfy your own sordid ideas of pleasure, you imbecile.
And she switched couches so that he had to step back and allow her to go. The scent of her hung in the air for some seconds, and then it blended with the fragrance of spring, and Blackie leaned weakly upon his cane and stared down the path which she had taken.
My lord, what a woman.
He was only half back to reality when a soft voice behind him startled him. "Your Highness?" He whirled. A dark blanket swooped upon him, and strong arms instantly pinioned him. He started to shout, but when he dragged in a breath, the sickish odor of chloroform came with it. From far, far off, he heard someone say,
You might have rushed it, fool.
"Captain, no absurdity must he, sir."
This way.
If Blackie Lee was ill when he came around, he gave no sign of it. He was seated at the head of a long table, unbound and not crumpled, but only relieved of his armament. Away from him went a long, dark board festooned with hazy islands of paper and lighted by 9 candles thrust into the tops of tall bottles. Far down the board from Blackie sat a man, all in black, whose features seemed hybrid from a hawk and a wolf, sharp and merciless and mocking. The man seemed to burn darkly within, for his eyes gleamed, changing from languor to madness as he spoke. All eyes were upon Blackie, from a thin young devil on Blackie's left. He muttered, snarl. "I say, you to feel this way." Several heads nodded agreement. The man at the foot of the table spoke.
I am Taufer. You have heard of my plan, comrades. I lead the society which must save Dora from the idiotic cruelty of a tyrant. You see here the key members of the Sons of Freedom. Tonight, Your Highness, we are not under the guns of your bodyguard. On the contrary, Your Highness.
Does anybody have a drink of brandy?
Keep the swaggies ready. A bottle and a glass were passed up the board, and Lee poured himself a drink. He sipped it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Tonight, the fate of Dora is to be decided.
Who has a cigarette?
The young devil on his left angrily snapped open the case, and Blackie lighted up from the nearest candle. He sank back, lolled one leg over the arm of his chair, and thoughtfully regarded the spiral of smoke.
You know, of course, that the majority of these present here decided leaning toward the idea of to death here and now.
I shouldn't wonder.
This overtaxed and enslaved land would then be rid of its unwanted and incompetent ruler. All of us have been forced, yes, one time or another. Your minister Grosh, bishops, but only in a matter of consciousness, bribery, and graft. The intrigues of a detestable Countess Sita and the activities of her private espionage corps are only to be equaled by the power incumbent of my own. You and Grotch and the Countess Sita must be removed. You, because you are a stupid drunkard. Grotch, because he is a rapacious villain. Zita, because she has acquired too much power.
The one with dark hair.
You mock us?
On the contrary, I take so little interest in such things.
The will of the people should be and shall be the will of the government. Aldoria must be free.
What makes you think it will be any freer in the hands of communists than in the hands of royalty?
What's this?
Why, in one case, one knows to which thing belongs, but in the other, nobody ever knows. How much is Russia paying to hand over the Balkan voucher?
There was an angry stir about the table, but there was also question and concern in some of the glances.
So long as royalty rules, the Allied forces hold the balance of power in the Balkans. As soon as you are in power, Russia will snatch up and enslave and crush all the states on the borders.
Ah, you are wiser at these things than I give you credit for being. You are definitely interested then in the political and international aspect of the situation.
On the contrary, I am only interested only another drink of brandy.
There was considerable whispering about the table, and then word was passed down to Belcher. The young devil on Blackie's left said,
Kill the fear this one and have done with it.
Your Highness, We know that your interests are mainly in bottle, eating gowns, and that anything outside Paris bores you.
Blackie looked in the ceiling and took a drag on the cigarette.
We are about to make a suggestion, Your Highness, which you'll probably receive with gladness. If you were to declare an election to stop this unrest, you know what the outcome of that election would be. The Sons of Freedom would win. The people will gladly exchange our idealism for your own bestial rule. Go on. You are interested. Supposing, Your Highness, that you were to declare an election, which is a modern thing to do, and give the people a chance to choose their own form of government. Yes. And supposing, Your Highness, that in return, you are guaranteed 5 million francs. Place your resident Paris bank upon the condition of your accepting those election notes.
Supposing that sum was 12 million.
Or 10.
12 then.
Well, you are a wise fellow, Your Highness. You know that you would never be able to collect or touch such a sum without having to remain in the country. And even then, you know. Here you have a paper near guaranteed estate.
By all means.
Fortunate to find you stole for a change.
How fortunate we met.
The first paper which was handed to him was an outright application, all prepared and waiting for his signature. He looked his question and at once received a statement of faith, signed by Voucher, listing the terms accompanied by a promissory note guaranteeing the sum in Paris. Blackie put out his hand and a pen was placed in it. The pen scratched out, Philip, Archduke Valdorian. Downstreet's hands trembled when he took the paper back. Hastily, he compared the signature with several he had at hand, and was satisfied with the authenticity of it. Downstreet emotionally poured out a glass of liquor and stood up.
To the Socialist Republic of Valdoria!
To the Socialist Republic of Dora! Blackie tucked the guarantee in the note inside his jacket and stood up.
I am sorry to leave so abruptly, gentlemen, but I have a dinner engagement.
By all means, keep it. You will declare the election by the end of the week.
Certainly. Yes, indeed. Now, if I may be shown the way out of this place.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
Spooks, specters, and restless spirits. Are you tired of being outfoxed by meddling mortals with their flashy cameras and humming EMF detectors? Well, fear no more. Introducing the essential guide for the afterlife. The Professional Spook's Guide to Happy Haunting. Yes, friends of the Phantom Persuasion, this handy volume teaches you the tricks of the trade, from rattling your chains just enough to unsettle without tripping motion sensors to advanced haunting maneuvers available nowhere else. Don't let amateurs with gadgets spoil your haunting fun. With the Spook's Guide to Happy Haunting, you'll stay one phantom light ahead of the living every time. Pick up your copy wherever books are sold, or simply materialize one on a foggy windowsill tonight. Remember, spirits, haunt smarter than harder.
Stubb was wild. He had torn through every inch of the garden and the hotel without once being able to stop and ask anybody any questions, or fear Blackie had been taken by the authorities, who would then naturally be desirous of taking Stubb as well. And when, at 9:30, distraught and on the verge of collapse to the point of needing a drink, no matter what risks he had to run to win it, he stumbled into the grill onward to the bar and found Blackie. Yes, it was certainly Blackie, sitting there with half a ton of silvery service spread out around him and sipping a glass of rare vintage, as though he hadn't a thought in the world beyond his filet mignon. Bitterness welled in Stubbs' heart. He marched straight up to the table and stood there glaring.
Hello, sweetheart. Have a drink? Yeah, I'll have a drink. I'll have 10 drinks, and then I'll tell you what I think of you.
Now, people are watching. Sit down, darling, and this wine is very good. Here, waiter. Another bottle of Chateau Vrel 96. And some steak and things for my good friend as a physician. Now, Pierre, what were you saying?
Yeah. Blackie Lee, you're going to tell me what this is all about here and now, or I'll
Have a drink. There. Cool your throat no end. Cigarette. Special brand they keep here for His Highness in case he ever comes, which he doesn't.
give.
Cigarette.
No, damn you, information. What's this all about?
Hush. Would it appease you to know that we are rich?
Rich.
As Cretius, would it soothe you to know that we will soon go to Paris, buy off our dishonest debts, and live with luxury and a life full of luxury for the rest of our lives?
Oh, you've got another idea. Blackie, I could take so much. That last ammunition deal unsettled your mind. Just how you ever hypnotize these people into calling you your highness. Well, then why do they do it? How do you rate such a banquet? Why do they let you run out the bills?
For the past 3 years, His Royal Highness the Archduke Philip of Aldoria has been laid dead drunk behind closed doors.
What's that got to do with it?
Why, 3 years ago, they threatened to cut him off without a yacht to his name if he didn't come home. That was Grotch's doing.
Who's Grot?
Prime Minister of Aldoria.
Oh.
10 years ago in Paris, when my life was full time, a man came up to me while I was sitting at a sidewalk cafe and bowed to me and said, "Your Highness, here is a 3,000 francs you won last night."
Maybe I'm getting it.
And so I thought to myself, I said, "Thank you." And I banked the roll. I thought he was either drunk or blind or more or less forgot about it until one night a redhead dashed up to me at a cafe and threw a glass of champagne in my face and told me to go back to Aldoria where women were more likely to look twice at pigs. And a waiter rushed up and wiped me off and said, "So sorry, Your Highness."
Yeah, see, maybe I'm getting it.
So I thought to myself, I'd better look into this. I dug into newspaper boards and finally turned up a photograph of Archduke Philip of Aldoria. He looked very much like me, except perhaps for the eyes, but in bright sunlight or dim cabaret, no one could tell the difference between us. Later, I patched back my history and found that a younger son of the Hohenbergs, to which royal family Philip also belongs, had been there boosted forth into the world, had migrated to America, and set himself up in Denver, I think he was, as a faro expert. Before he cold-decked his last customer, a violent chap, he managed to get himself married to a decent girl. And very likely I am descended from that line. That is a guesswork outline that I figured out myself.
Well, what did you do when you figured that out?
I had a plan. I studied Aldorian, learned the language backwards and forwards.
But think what can happen. He's king, though. He's king here, all right?
He's merely an archduke.
Yeah, but here he's king. Now listen to me, Blackie Lee. You get fancy ideas and sometimes they work, but you're heading straight for the deepest, darkest pit.
Your Highness?
The voice, soft and regretful, was very near. Blackie looked languidly to his right. The intruder had come up with a great deal of silence, considering the sword, chains, and spurs he wore. He had his gleaming plumed helmet in the crook of his arm and was bowing with all deference.
Well, it is my sorrowful duty, Your Highness, to ask you to accompany me.
Is this a common arrest?
No, Your Highness, forgive me. The Countess Zita, who might have the honor to serve as major of her household troops, earnestly requests your presence in her carriage outside, that she may escort you back to the capital and your palace. The escort is large, and you have nothing to fear, sire.
Stubbs shakingly put down the forkful of steak.
I just remembered an engagement
Your Highness. Oh, don't go, Doctor. Tell the Countess Zita that my physician and my friend will be happy to avail ourselves of her courtesy. As soon as my wardrobe is packed, I shall join her in her carriage.
Asking your forgiveness, Your Highness, but we will have this hotel surrounded.
Well, Major, you have me there. A glass of wine?
Thank you, sire.
It is my privilege to join the Countess Zita in a few minutes. Here, take a bottle and a glass out of her with my countenance. It really is a rare advantage.
Blackie rose and sauntered from the room.
I won't go. It's straight to the gallows.
Then go out and get yourself stuck on a saber. Personally, it's worth it to ride a few kilometers with such a woman.
Stubbs sat on the box beside the coachman, a horse blanket about his shoulders, and shivered himself weary. He could hear the continuous murmur of the voices inside the coach, and thought to himself that the pair down there certainly had found enough to talk about. And he was envious, too. Blackie Lee had all the luck. Blackie looked like a prince and always knew exactly the right thing to say at exactly the right time. And of course, women fell for it. The Countess down there, however, didn't interest Stubbs the kind of woman who'd fall for anything. But the fact failed to hearten him. He always distrusted such women instinctively. They were too clever and too beautiful and too intense. Devil were they talking about? He shifted restlessly and dragged the blanket more tightly about his shivering self. The carriage was making many small noises, and the clomp of hoofs was such that he could not distinguish their words until the cavalcade stopped a few moments for a toll bar to be raised.
But Wagner is so crude.
Crude? Not crude, but vital. Barbaric, perhaps, but vital. The magic fire music.
Opera. Gosh.
Here were the lives of two perfectly good men at stake, and they talked about opera. Was Blackie out of his head? Shortly after midnight, the Snaky Mountain Trail flattened out far enough to allow an inn to crouch beside it. The windows dark and the taproom still. The Major reined in and, without leaving his cell, uttered against the door with the butt of his pistol.
Open wide for La Countess Zita!
That shout reacted upon the place as a bomb might have done. Lights flared and heads were thrust from windows, and hastily drawn boots leaped down the steps.
Not yet! Thor's and Gregory, scare out that place. Benedict, take 3 men and beat the rest. Alert all!
The troopers loosed their cloaks and drew their carbines, and upon the plumaging mounts turned the yard and stables inside out. And just when it seemed that not one stone would be left of the inn, the Major leaped down from his horse and himself handed the Countess Zita from the carriage across the yard and into the tap room. The pop-jawed innkeeper recognized, or thought he did, the Archduke Philip, and immediately came to himself enough to rush into his cellar and come out lugging every fine whiskey and liquor he could lay his hands upon. The Countess Zita seated herself at the largest table in the room, holding up to the hem of her ermine cape so as not to dirty it on the floor.
Refreshments for my troop. Your best wine for the horses, your best fodder. Make haste.
The innkeeper, familiar with such procedures, sent his pothole scurrying. Blackie Lee regaled himself with capon and buns, startling the Countess by his sparing this with the drink, and seemed to have no care in the world. At a side table with the Major, Stubb ate with sorrow but good appetite, for worry was nothing to take the edge from Stubb's hunger.
His Highness looks astonishingly well. Did I understand properly when I heard that you were the physician responsible for that?
Huh? He? Well, we have an effective treatment for that sort of thing. In France.
Yes, I see what you mean.
After a pause, having remembered how cold it was on top of the carriage.
By the way, couldn't we have taken the railroad to the capital?
We could have, but we must be careful of His Highness. We are crossing the mountains in a roundabout way to foil assassination attempts. The railroad has been discovered mine twice in the past week.
Assassination?
Of course.
Well, then this country must be pretty bothered about something.
It's communism. His Highness, if you'll forgive me, is not too easy on the people, and that he leaves all his affairs in the hands of others. The peasants object, you know. Taxes and lack of justice and such things. The Sons of Freedom have grown very powerful this past year. Now, if I had my way about it, I would find this Beltran hanging by his heels at the palace gate and ride down his followers with hounds. But no. Grouch fumbles about and expects everything to die down. Why, do you know, I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see a revolt in the next month or two. Of course, the nobles have adequate defenses if their troops don't serve. I'm sure my troops naturally, and we men, but it would be nasty while it lasted. If His Highness were assassinated now, that would put us all in a bad way, for it would leave the country without a figurehead, and the people would never stand for Grouch ascending to the throne, as Grouch, of course, would do. That is why we must be so careful of His Highness. The people, even though they know that he stays drunk most of the time, have some faith left in him. Grouch is the sore point.
Stubb could almost see pistols blazing from ambush. He ate in even deeper melancholy. It was 2 o'clock when they arrived at the gates of Bowe, capital of Aldoria. The ancient city climbed steeply up a mountainside, and many of its streets wide flights of steps. Stubb had a hazy impression of parks and parade grounds and rows of old trees and moats and balconies and streams and stone bridges, and then they were guttering into a courtyard through an arch fully 50 feet thick. The cries rolled and echoed as the guard tumbled out. The major leaped from his lathered horse and saluted the officer of the day.
The Countess Zita, bringing His Highness.
"Hello, boy," said the officer of the day, and then, turning to an orderly,
Prepare a barrack for the Countess's troops. Inform Gloucester that the Countess Zidon has arrived. Well, Horn, how have you been?
You evidently didn't understand me. His Highness is in that carriage. Turn out the royal guard. Now, of course, we'll tell you your business. Wow.
What's that? His Highness?
Right.
Good Lord, His Highness hasn't been out of his quarters for a week. How can he be in that carriage?
Not only can he be, but he is.
No, you're not wrong. Well, on your head be, following. Trumpeter, the opera welcome. Runner, carry the word of the arrival of His Highness to Grouch. Orderly, inform General Brown of His Highness's arrival. Follow, this is crazy. His Highness hasn't been out of Boring for 3 years.
the major stepped in carriage door and threw it open. A double rank of red-jacketed guardsmen, looking sleepily amazed under the gleam of battered lanterns, which had flickered into light all around the courtyard, made 2 lines leading up the steps to the gigantic doors of the palace. Blackie stepped down and then turned to meet the Countess to the pavement. With the Countess's hand upon his wrist, Blackie strolled between the ranks of scarlet and steel up the steps and into the wide halls. Outside an iron-studded doorway stood an apoplectic old man. He was tying the cord of his dressing gown, and he saw Blackie and the Countess. His wrinkled old face went slack and then tightened into lines of pettish anger.
What the devil is this?
You let him get out, and I brought him back.
Grouch peered nearsightedly up into Blackie's face.
What are you doing up and about this hour of the night?
He was in Draken, without escort, you careless simpleton. What if Beltran had been there?
But I put out your lights myself not 4 hours ago. Draken? I must be going there.
I could have told you that years ago.
In here in Cologne. You always stand here and cast ammonia.
Blackie and the Countess followed him into the great hall, which served as his office, reception room, Ancient weapons rusted on the walls, and tapestry drooped behind massive dark chairs. Grotch, fussing and sputtering, got around the back of his desk as though it were some barricade. His small souled face was working when he next stared at Blackie.
Why are you wearing dark? Take them off.
Blackie shrugged and took them off. Grotch had found some spectacles of his own, and with these he again peered closely at his Highness.
This is yes. How could you change it in 4 hours? How could you be in Drachta and in bed at the same time? Something very queer about this. What happened to your whiskey back?
Blackie picked up a cigarette from the box on Grotch's desk. He blew the smoke insolently at Grotch.
Go up and turn out the impostor who has taken my name for so long and bring him down here so I may sentence him according to his demerits.
What's this?
Imposter! Imposter! The man who got back from Paris was a fellow by the name Blackie Lee, a soldier of fortune, a gambler and adventurer. He caused me to be drugged and took my papers and my name. Bring him down here so I can confront him with his crime and have him put away in a safe place where he can do no further harm.
Neither Zita nor Grotch moved for a space of seconds.
All right. We'll see what this is about. Captain Brett asked His Highness to grant me the courtesy of an interview in my office.
The captain, who had been by the door and out of earshot, hurried away. Blackie Lee remained seated at the desk, indolently swinging one leg and smoking his cigarette. Some time later, there was a commotion in the corridor and the sound of swearing. The doors hurst inward, and Philip, Archduke of Aldoria, stood there, supported on either side by an officer. There was no doubt about his being drunk. He weaved into the room and came to a lurching halt, both hands doubled into fists and knuckled to the polished surface of the desk.
What now, you murdering old mummy? Can't you even let me sleep?
Grotch said not a word. His outstretched hand indicated Blackie Lee. Philip's reddened eyes focused upon Blackie. He was too angry to grasp that image immediately. He started to look back at Grotch, but suddenly snapped his glance at Blackie again. Philip stared. He made a pass at his eyes, blinked, and stared again.
What's this all about? Mirror? You know what this is all about. Surprised to see me, aren't you, Mr. Blackie Lee? Thought you'd put me away forever, eh? Well, I came back to claim what is rightfully mine. Guard! Put this in...
Not so fast. I'm afraid we'll have to have a little more proof than that. If you are really Philip Archduke of Aldoria, then you would know the full name of your grandmother on your father's side.
Ask him first.
That's fair. Answer that question.
What's the devil? You have the insolence to cross-question me while you monkey-faced old blackguard. I'll have your heart. I'll have you spitted and dragged through the streets. Don't bluster. Answer the question. If you really are Philip of Aldoria, you would know such a thing. And if you don't,
Philip was white with rage, and his words would not come. But gradually, it began to come home to him as he stared from the legion to Grotch, and he really was suspected of being an impostor.
how the devil can I remember what those old days' names were? See? Maria Bouet, Dragon Buchin, Rose Calvina, Duchess of Ambolina.
Philip glared and began to rage, but Grotch silenced him.
I admit that it's not too good a test. There is the now signature.
And he extended a pen to Philip, who finally smudged it, and the fool's cap scrawled his name so viciously that the ink flew. Calmly, Blackie took the pen and wrote Philip of Aldoria in a neat and proper hand. Grotch nodded thoughtfully over the paper and then looked at Blackie.
I'm beginning to believe you. How was it that this fellow managed in Paris to
Imbecile! Apes! To drown a man out of warm bed and then tell him that he is not who he is. Here, I'll prove it to you. One and all know that the real Philip of Algoria had a triangular scar upon his shoulder received from a fall from a horse.
And he ripped off his pajama jacket and turned the scar to them. One and all, he said, knew it. But one man hadn't known it. Blackie very calmly took off his cloak and then his tailcoat. He unsnapped his cuffs and then, as an afterthought it seemed, placed cloak and coat upon a chair near the wall, which, strangely enough, was just under a shield and a pair of long swords. There was a swish and a sing of sunlight hitting steel, and the point of the weapon was at the throat of the stupefied Archduke Philip.
Be very quiet, all of you. Grotz, go to the door and order a carriage to be ready. And if you
He
fail,
took down a dagger from beside the shield and held it by the point.
I am pretty good at throwing these things.
Countess Zita stood with one hand to her breast, her eyes bright with interest, a pulse beating under the creamy smoothness of her throat. But Grotch knew what a wild chance and a slim one Blackie Lee had of getting past the guard in the hall.
Sympathy.
Grotch stepped out as though on his way to the door. But before he'd gotten out front behind his desk, he vanished. There was the excited clamor of an alarm gong he had touched off. Blackie stiffened. He had been outpointed twice in a night through stupid oversight. The Archduke tried to dodge and then found himself snatched and spun about and made into a shield just as the doors burst open, and red-jacketed guards rushed in. They faltered and stopped, amazed at the strange duplication, uncertain. Stand away. Suddenly Zita screamed. A shot stood behind Blackie. Grosh, smoking pistol in hand, stood beside an open door. His seed face wore a smile of triumph. Blackie's grip on Philip relaxed little by little until Philip was able to slide from his grasp. Blackie stood there, weeping a little, his face pale, and he fell forward to the rug and lay there, a small hole in his shirt back, turning slowly red. Another word from our sponsor.
Ladies, gentlemen, and most especially ladies of the cover. Have your wormsticks lost their sip? Do your hexes fizzle when they ought to sizzle? Then what you need is the brand new elixir sweeping the supernatural world, Witchovita. Yes, indeed, Witchovita is the sparkling magic tide, guaranteed to put the pep back in your potion and the spark back in your spell. Just one bubbly sip a day, and you'll feel 20 cauldrons younger. Why, Witchovita contains a secret blend of vital fruit, tub of fat, deadly nightshade, toadstool, and witch hazel was personally blended for you, utilizing the fiber of a disgruntled chicken.
Oh, mercy me. I was down in Fairley in Bruja, but after Witchovita, it's like a Halloween every day.
Why feel like a tired hag when you could feel like the belle of the bonfire? Get yourself a bottle of Witchovita today, because vigor, vim, and vitality are just a cauldron away.
Double, double toilet cheer. Witchovita brings you here. Candle bright by sunbeams bright. With Witchovita you'll forever fly.
Yes, that's Witchovita, available wherever tonics and toads are sold.
Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget that after the show, there will be a costume contest. If you're in costume, don't leave. Also, we have books for you after the show. And now, back to our story. Stubb went roaming around the cell for a long time, curiosity sizzling within him. Finally, he could not bear the silence any longer.
You mean you've got an idea?
I mean, I've got an idea. What else would I like to cross?
I didn't know you did that.
Lots of things you don't know.
You wrote Grotch. Why did you say that?
Whatever I said to Grotch, if I said it right, he should be here in about an hour or two. From the information I pried out of this, and
Was that why you were talking to us?
stop interrupting me if you want information. You know as well as I do that there have been at least 5 riots around the Mount Vorin. The Sons of Freedom had reason to believe that an election would soon be announced, so they released it. And when it wasn't announced, the riots began. Boucher is stirring up this country, and it's like a bee's nest. And he's going to have an election and get the communists in power if he doesn't if he doesn't first blow up the whole Valdoria.
Well, what's that got to do with you and 12 million francs?
If I am responsible for the election, why then we collect?
Oh, you sometimes make me think I'm hearing things. How can you order an election?
There were footsteps in the corridor and the snap of rifle slings as the sentries at the turrets came to attention. A face appeared in the grate, and a key rattled in the lock, and then Grudge, carefully backed by 2 armed officers, entered the cell. Grudge stood looking at Blackie. Grudge's evil little face was speculating.
You wrote me a letter. I did. And may I ask what it is to you if Philip stays on the throne?
Maybe it's because we look alike, and his death would be like losing half of myself.
And maybe not. You're well again?
Well as ever.
Where did you get those?
He looked around the room and realized that there were several things there that he had not included in the cell. He was wondering how they had appeared there. Blackie had drifted off absently and was staring out of the window. The Grudge pointed out that that was not the business at hand. Blackie came back to life.
With me included?
With you included. It has occurred to me that if the Archduke were only brave enough and willing to make another appearance, the populace might again have some thinking. The stories of his drunkenness have gained too wide a circulation, and the people are howling for election. The election must not take place. If the Archduke Philip can make a strong public appeal in person, but the Sons of Freedom have threatened his life if he does not immediately abdicate. Public appearance would be a highly dangerous undertaking, and so he cannot trust Philip straight up. I have ordered the dedication of a new print, claiming that Philip would be there in person. You, my swashbuckling rival, will be there instead of Philip. Highly dangerous? Highly. What do I get out of it? You will serve my purposes for a month or 2. At that time, you may have your liberty. And nothing more. And nothing more. Refuse this, and you'll never be heard of again. Hard turf is a hard man. But I'll take that. You're wise. Tomorrow morning, you'll be taken to the royal wardrobe and dressed. Tomorrow noon, you'll dedicate the new bridge.
What if I am assassinated?
You'll pretend you're merely wounded. Philip, day after tomorrow, will appear for a moment on the balcony to reassure the people. I thought of that.
There is no doubt about that.
Grudge about face and went limping out into the corridor. The cell door clanged behind him. And so it was at 10:30 that Blackie Lee paced up and down the top of the palace steps and waited for his carriage. The carriage came at last, brilliant with colors and heraldry. Grudge came with it, but when it reached the steps, Grudge creakingly got out, much too smart to be so close to a possible target.
May I remind you that while you've been wearing the uniform of Dora, I'll bring up medals. You are, in reality, Blackie Lee, wanted by nearly every government in Europe.
But Blackie had not seemed to have heard him, for he was again looking toward the gate. He faced Grudge.
Listen, you old buzzer. Where's the Countess Zita?
He also has romantic ideas. My fine bra, the Countess Zita entered my displeasure. But I'm afraid that a man would have to be more powerful than myself, either to harm or to command her. You better forget it, Countess Zita, for many a man far more worthy than yourself has sighed in direction quite in vain. Get into that carriage. I shall be waiting for news.
Blackie took another turn up and down the top step. and then giving it up, went to the carriage and got in. The troop of hussars ranged on either side of the carriage, making an effective and watchful screen. Somewhere up ahead, a band struck up, and the martial music tingled in the exhilarating air. The carriage rolled out through the arch and across the drawbridge and down the curving street. By the time the procession stopped in the small park on the near side of the new bridge, and Blackie had walked up to the platform that had been built, he was over his momentary shakes and his hands were quite calm as he severed the bright ribbons to officially open the right-of-way. Blackie faced them. He was unaware of the speech which an official was trying to get him to hold. He was still watching for someone, and still failing to find her. In a mechanical, disinterested voice, he began to read the pompous nothingness in the lines. A shrill voice in the mob cried,
"Devil take the bridge! We came here to know about the election!"
Blackie halted and looked down across the thousands.
Yeah, what about the elections?
Vulture's Sons of Freedom were staging this, Blackie knew.
He's afraid to hold an election. He knows the will of the people.
Meanwhile, police and hussars were trying to spot the hecklers, but with no success. The word caught on, as it was meant to. Half a dozen shouted,
Election!
"Election!"
Election!
Blackie sighed. He gave one last hopeless look around, and then he tore the written speech in 4 sections and hurled the fragments fluttering from him.
I'll tell you about the elections.
If you dare.
I dare. I dare more than that. I proclaim here and now officially that the elections will take place upon the last Thursday of this month.
There was chaos behind him. Chaos and cheers before him. Somehow Captain Drake got him by the arm and dragged him away.
Why did you do it?
Blackie stretched out his legs and looked thoughtfully into the fireplace. This was the north turret, and though the quarters were large and aside from drafts comfortable, Blackie was a prisoner. He was needed too much to be thrown into a cell again.
Why shouldn't I do it?
But you might as well have sent us all to the headman's block and had done with it. If they had revolted, our troops are loyal and good enough to handle them, and we would have crushed these upstarts under Belcher. But we cannot draw back from this election. What folly! What a mockery! Belcher has been praying for this to happen, and now that it has happened, he is in his glory.
No use for a lot of innocent people to get killed. Even if I had crushed the revolt, you'd still have to watch the whole nation.
That's not your reason. You're deep, I'll give you that. You play life as if it were a game of cards. You have no scruples. Perhaps you are too big and too strong to believe in anything but your own loss. But this time you have played your hand too far. I do not know what was at the bottom of this, but it is dark and awful. Answer me, Blackie. Why did you do it?
Perhaps because it was because you were not there.
What could I have to do with it?
Zita's eyes were round with wonder. For one of the very few times in her life, she was astonished beyond the ability to speak.
Well, that's that. You didn't appear and I announced the election. Now I'm going through with it.
This announcement brought her back and was welcome, for she disliked being disconcerted.
Yes, you are going through with it. Philip is drunk, and you must go out and make his speeches. Yes, you've gone out and made them, and made a mess of them.
Oh, I don't know. I always thought I was pretty good at making speeches.
You could be if you wanted to be.
I punctuated them rather nicely, and so far I've avoided getting killed, and that is a trick within itself. Here I've been pouring out my very soul for your country in silver oratory, and you criticize me?
You mock me.
By the way, how old are you?
She stared at him, again, frozen by surprise. And she surprised herself further by answer.
26.
Ever think of marriage?
Marriage? If I ever meet a man that can get the better of me, I'll marry him.
Haven't met him yet, eh?
Certainly not.
Blackie poured himself a small glass of brandy, and then, on impulse, gave it to her and poured himself another.
So you don't know why I announced that election?
I certainly do not, and I came here to find out.
Well, I'll tell you. I made a bargain with Boucher some time ago, and he's thinking me, Philip, is ready to keep it.
A bargain with Belcher.
Certainly, I've played my stakes as I see them. He offered me a Paris income of 12 million francs if I ordered an election and lost it. Philip won't know about that. I do. I'll claim it in Paris.
You expect Belcher to keep that bargain.
Why not? A year of his rule and people would welcome that, Philip.
Belcher will never let us out of this country alive. He'll have us all killed. And even now, the people are so excited about this election that no amount of threat can extract the tax receipts. And news of this election has wrecked our national credit. We cannot borrow or beg, and our troops are mainly mercenaries. Already, nearly 1,000 of them have deserted, either because of promises from the Sons of Freedom or because of the lack of pay. Probably both. We could have held a revolt.
She was stilled, realizing at last exactly what Blackie had said.
You sold out Aldoria for 12 million francs? You knew Philip would probably never know or claim it, and that he might be killed. You knew you could discount a rumor of his death. You sold us out.
The brandy glass crashed to the floor, and Zena stumbled to her feet. She stared at him. She was so angry she was shaking.
I suppose that there is no use arguing with you. You will carry this thing through and make certain our loss.
Sit down.
Sir,
He reached out and took her wrist and gave it a slight twist, so that she had to sink into her chair. No man had ever before dared lay hand upon her, and the experience did not seem to register, so impossible it seemed.
You say there's no way to make me change. I admit the thing has gone so far that almost nothing can stop it or keep Boucher out of this palace. But there's yet another bargain I might make.
and that.
Well, if you would consent to be my wife, I might be able to win this election for the crown.
She would have started up, but another slight twist on her wrist brought her to cheer again. She was white even to her lips, and her eyes were pure flame.
You devil.
You asked if there was a way.
You would double-cross Boucher.
He made no bargain with me, but the man he thought was Philip.
She sat for minutes without moving or speaking. He gave her time, gazing steadily into the fire. At last, she got up and paced up and down the hearth, twisting at the silken kerchief in her hand.
If I consent to this, will you take my word?
Certainly.
Very well, if you can swing this election to the crown, I will take you as my husband.
Done. A drink to it?
I do not drink with swine.
And very straight, she marched from the room.
I don't care what you've done in the country. I still say we'll never trade Bowe. Boucher's machine will pack the boxes and resort to every vile trick you've never heard about. He has advice straight from Moscow, and those Russians are experts. A country town is different. You can do anything dishonest out there and knowing it. But here in Boren, Boucher's party will win. And Boren has enough votes to carry the election.
Go away. It's bad enough to have to talk all day without having to talk all night to you.
But tomorrow is the day. At 9, the polls open. And we know for certain that we will never carry Boren. Why? You're the man who's a member of the Sons of Freedom here.
Blackie bleakly filled a tumbler with water and drank to ease his sandpapered throat.
Who is the administrative genius here, you or I?
What's this going to be? I'm getting a trifle too gay with all this newfound glory in my fine brow.
I asked a simple question. What's it worth to better your chances in Boren?
What's it worth? You mean you bargain?
Censure from you is very funny. but I happen to be too tired to laugh. What's it worth?
10,000 zetestas.
20,000 cash on this table.
After a little, Watch came back with 20,000 zetestas and laid them on the table. Blackie counted them and thrust the roll into his jacket pocket.
It's 7 o'clock. In other words, I have a whole night ahead. Go shake Philip out of his stupor and get him to sign a proclamation. Or I'll sign it, since they're one and the same.
About what?
4 years, ever since Turkey started it, women in these small states have been shouting for complete suffrage. Granted,
What?
give women the right to vote. Issue the proclamation tonight. It is valid because your government is still valid. They'll be so wild with joy and so grateful that they'll
Might work. But only balance on votes. It won't guarantee a win. I know if these boxes will be stuffed. We could have need something freedom in the ballot boards.
run along and write things on a fancy piece of parchment. Personally, I am going to get myself a good night's sleep.
The Countess Zita sat in lonely splendor in her lavish, boring apartments. Since dawn, her bags had been packed, and fast horses had been standing in harness against the possible eve of flow. But as the hours dragged and tidings came, the necessity for escape grew more and more remote. For the election, despite all the brawling and bellowing of the Sons of Freedom, was a landslide for the Crown. Upon the ballots, very few crosses appeared after by popular vote, which was to say communism. The ballots were black and heavy with the exits following continued monarchy. Continued monarchy. The North wanted it, the East and the West wanted it, and Voren, most of all, had abruptly turned angry backs upon the Sons of Freedom and the dictates of Boucher, and had scratched and fought to get into the polls, men and frenzied women alike, to maintain Philip's reign. At first, the royal party had been too stubborn to take stock, but when noon and then 1 o'clock had come, with the votes still coming in everywhere in the ratio of 1 to 100 against communism, the members of the royal party were encouraged enough to stroll in the streets to discover what was going on. The Countess Zita alone had not been overjoyed. She had, at 2 o'clock, drifted briefly through the town in her carriage, and had seen with her own eyes the words that had electrified the populace.
To all those who believe Philip has not the good of Eldoria at heart.
Below this was a copy of an agreement signed by Boucher himself, to the effect that Philip was to receive 12 million francs from the Eldorian public treasury if he would abdicate. And there was a promissory note to confirm the bargain. But worst of blow of all to Boucher, that note bore the added line, faithfully guaranteed by the Soviet Union, Joseph Stalin. In vain had the Sons of Freedom attempted to prove that the last signature was a forgery. The government had hastily shown about documents that confirmed the authenticity of the signature, or at least seemed to confirm it. The Countess Zita went back to her apartment and shut herself off from the mad town. At 9:30, the tabulating was nearly finished, and it began to dawn upon her that a Blackie was coming for her, and he would shortly be there. When the outer bell rang, Zita stood up. Her face was bitter and cold, but as a woman of honor, she was prepared to keep her word and make arrangements for the wedding. She heard a servant answer the bell. She heard Major Floyd's footsteps coming to her door to announce him. But Floyd didn't announce Blackie Lee. He announced Stub Doyle. Stub held his hat nervously in one hand and a letter in the other. Stub was red-faced and embarrassed.
He sent me over with this, my lady.
She felt anger kindle within her. He was impertinent enough to demand that she come to him. She snatched the letter.
The Countess Zita, my lady. The election has been won. You have, you suppose, lost. But allow me to correct that impression. Years ago, I found that I resembled our friend Philip and planned to cash in upon that resemblance. In that I failed. Some time ago, I found myself hard pressed by the Nazi government and had to choose between starvation in Austria or a moment of plenty in Aldoria. I chose the latter. I was about to take my leave when you met me on that garden path and proceeded to deliver a verbal lashing. Shortly after, Belcher mistook me for Philip and made a bargain with me, for he had long awaited that chance. I signed, naturally, to save my skin. You delivered me to the palace, and I had to try to brazen it out. You sent me food and wine and books as though I were some stray tramp. I assumed by now that you are convinced that I will have to go through with this onerous bargain. Not so, my lady. It would have been quite impossible to have collected that sum from Boucher, election or no election. It was quite impossible to win this election, but it is won. I am afraid, my lady, that all men are blurs to you. I hope that you find some fellow who will give you even worse at drubbing than I have. If you ever marry, my lady, I hope your husband ignores you. By the time you receive this, I shall be en route elsewhere. I leave you in your hands, my friend Stub Doyle, for I fear my further company will complete his ruin. Your bridegroom not to be Blackie Lee. P.S. I hope he tells you that all your hats look badly upon you.
Blackie Lee curled up in the corner of a compartment and sleeping the sleep of the innocent and just, possessed of a suit of clothes on his back and enough money to get into a good stud game. The train master was shaking him.
Sire, we're almost to Warren.
Blackie knew he was dreaming now. He had left Boren at least 6 hours ago, and the next stop ought to be the frontier.
Vor,
Warren, sire. We are just coming into the station now.
am I crazy or is it the both of us?
We were stopped, sire, and ordered to return to Warren.
Blackie could hear voices and then was nearly blinded by the lights of the station. Or were those station lights? What? Torches? Why, the place was mobbed and the people were screaming. What the devil had gone wrong? How had word gotten out that he wasn't really Philip? Oh, well, he faced an angry mob before, perhaps. Blackie stared down at the upraised faces, all red with yelling, lighted by the torches, and there were banners, banners, banners. A band began to play in a wild effort to drown out the shouting, and the people began shouting in a mad effort to drown out the band. Blackie wonderingly waved a hand at the crowd, supposing that's the right thing to do, and it probably went delirious. There was Major Floyd ready to hand him down. People surged and pushed and pawed and tried to touch him. Long live the Somehow they got through that tumultuous sea. Somehow Major Floyd got him into a carriage, but the mob came right along with it, and so did the band and the banners and the torches. Long live the
How do you like it?
I like it all right, but what's it all about?
Why, it just so happens that Philip himself got a hold of some of those photostatic copies you had posted around.
What's that got to do with it?
He was so angry at having missed such a bargain that he nearly killed himself.
And so?
And so he told a person of influence that if he received 100,000 francs a year, he'd be glad to leave the country. And he signed an order of abdication in the favor of one Duke Lee, his cousin, who looks so much like her.
He signed? Say, look here. That doesn't explain all this reception. What
The whole truth was released by that person of influence. When one is put to it, a great deal can be done in a very short time. And when they discovered that it was you, not Philip, who had ripped country bullies and made sly bargains with Belcher and given women complete suffrage, why, they wouldn't let you out of the country in any event. You're a national hero, and it seems the new ruler of Eldoria.
He was dizzy with the shouting that was going up in the streets, dazed by her perfume and stunned by her sudden rise. For once in his life was a little too much for Blackie Lee.
And my hat? You like it?
It's terrible.
She looked taken aback, and then she laughed, her eyes sparkling with delight. And poor Stone, in the vestibule of the church the following week, could only look down the aisle and shake his woefully bothered head.
And I thought that guy was crazy.